Marcus Chen had seen enough war to know when someone needed help, regardless of what species they happened to be. The old veteran sat in his usual spot at the edge of New Geneva's spaceport, watching ships come and go while nursing his morning coffee. His left leg, still stiff from shrapnel he'd taken on Kepler 442b, ached in the morning chill. The diplomatic shuttle touched down with unusual roughness, its hull scarred and smoking. Marcus frowned, setting down his cup. In his 43 years, 20 of them spent fighting in humanity's expansion wars, he'd learned to recognize trouble. The ship's irregular landing pattern and the emergency beacon flashing on its hull told him everything he needed to know. Port Authority vehicles rushed toward the landing pad, but Marcus was already moving. His military instincts, honed through countless battles against hostile alien species, kicked in automatically. He grabbed his walking stick and headed toward the ship, his weathered face set in determination. The shuttle's airlock hissed open, releasing a cloud of acrid smoke. Through the haze emerged something that made even Marcus pause. The being was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure, easily 12 feet tall, with scales that shifted from deep emerald to brilliant gold in the artificial lighting. Wings that could have spanned a small aircraft hung limp at its sides, and its serpentine neck curved gracefully despite obvious distress. A dragon. Marcus had heard stories from the outer colonies, whispered tales of the Drakmari Confederacy, but he'd never seen one in person. The creature's eyes, ancient and intelligent, swept across the gathering crowd before settling on him. "Please!" the dragon said, its voice a rumbling bass that seemed to vibrate through Marcus's chest. "I cannot move or take wing. The ship's systems failed during atmospheric entry. I require assistance." The Port Authority team arrived, but they hung back uncertainly. First contact protocols were clear, but no one seemed to know what to do with an injured diplomatic envoy from a species humanity had barely begun to understand. The dragon's breathing was labored, and Marcus could see what looked like burns along its left flank. Marcus stepped forward, ignoring the protests from the port officials. "I'm Marcus Chen, formerly of the Colonial Marines. What's your condition?" The dragon's great head turned toward him, surprise flickering in its golden eyes. "You would help me, human? Your species and mine have had limited contact. You're hurt and asking for help," Marcus said simply. "That's all I need to know." He looked over the dragon's imposing form, his military medical training kicking in. "Tell me what happened. I am Zephyr Thale, envoy to your United Earth government. My ship encountered hostile forces 3 systems out. We managed to escape, but not before taking significant damage. During the emergency jump, the ship's artificial gravity matrix exploded. I was caught in the blast." Marcus could see the problem immediately. The dragon's left wing hung at an unnatural angle, and there was obvious swelling along its torso where the scales had been burned. But more concerning was the way Zephyr Thal held himself. The careful, controlled breathing of someone fighting against serious internal injuries. "The gravity matrix explosion," Marcus said, thinking aloud. "That would have created a massive pressure wave in the confined space. You've got internal injuries, probably broken ribs, possibly internal bleeding." He looked up at the dragon's face. "How long were you exposed to zero gravity after the blast?" "Approximately 7 of your hours," Zephyr Thal replied, impressed despite his pain. "You understand Drakmari physiology?" "I understand trauma," Marcus said. "Our species might look different, but physics works the same way for everyone." He turned to the Port Authority team, who were still standing uncertainly nearby. "We need to get him to the medical center immediately. He's going into shock." The team leader, a nervous-looking man with lieutenant's stripes, shook his head. "Sir, we can't just move an alien diplomatic envoy without proper authorization. There are protocols." "Your protocols are going to kill him," Marcus cut him off. Look at his breathing, the way he's holding his left side. He's bleeding internally, and every minute we wait makes it worse. Zephyr voice, when he spoke again, was noticeably weaker. The human is correct. I can feel my strength failing, but I must warn you. My species' physiology is not compatible with your medical systems. What heals a human might poison a Drakmari. Marcus knelt beside the great head, meeting the dragon's gaze. Then we'll figure something else out. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe and stable. He looked back at the Port Authority team. Is there a cargo hangar we can use? Somewhere with environmental controls? Hangar 7 is empty, one of the techs called out. It's got adjustable atmosphere and temperature controls. Good. Get some anti-grav sleds over here. We're going to move him carefully. Marcus looked up at Zephyr. I'm going to need you to trust me. Can you do that? The dragon's eyes studied him for a long moment. You wear the scars of a warrior, Marcus Chen. Yet you show compassion to a stranger. Yes, I will trust you. Getting Zephyr to the hangar required all of Marcus's tactical planning skills. The dragon weighed nearly 2 tons, and his injuries meant they couldn't simply drag him onto the sleds. Instead, Marcus coordinated a careful lifting operation using the port's heavy equipment, treating it like a combat casualty evacuation. Once in the hangar, Marcus had the team set up a makeshift medical station. He'd sent word to Dr. Sarah Kim, New Geneva's chief medical officer and an old friend from his military days. While they waited for her arrival, Marcus focused on keeping Zephyr stable. Tell me about your physiology, Marcus said, checking the dragon's pulse at what seemed like the equivalent of a wrist. What do I need to know to help you? Zephyr breathing had grown more labored, but his voice remained steady. We are not so different from your species as you might think. Our hearts beat, our blood flows, we feel pain and heal from wounds. But our blood chemistry is based on copper rather than iron, and our bones are hollow like your ancient flying reptiles. Marcus nodded, processing the information. Hollow bones meant they were more fragile than they appeared, but also explained how something so large could achieve flight. Copper-based blood meant their healing processes would be different, but the basic principles of trauma care should still apply. Dr. Kim arrived with a full medical team, her gray hair pulled back in its usual severe bun. She took one look at Zephyr and whistled softly. Well, this is a first. What's his condition? Marcus briefed her quickly while she set up diagnostic equipment. Internal injuries from a pressure wave, possible broken ribs, copper-based blood chemistry, hollow bone structure. He's been in pain for hours. Dr. Kim worked with practiced efficiency, adapting her human medical knowledge to alien physiology. The good news is that the basic principles of trauma medicine are universal. The bad news is that I can't give him any of our standard medications without knowing how they'll interact with his system. Then we work with what we know, Marcus said. Stabilize the immediate threats, manage his pain naturally, and keep him comfortable while his body heals itself. Zephyr watched their efforts with growing amazement. You would spend so much time and effort on a stranger? Your species is unexpected. We take care of our own, Marcus replied, adjusting the environmental controls to raise the temperature. He'd noticed the dragon seemed more comfortable in warmth. And right now, you're under human protection. That makes you one of ours. Dr. Kim's scans revealed what Marcus had suspected: several cracked ribs, internal bleeding, and severe inflammation throughout Zephyr respiratory system. It's like a massive case of decompression sickness, she explained. The pressure wave damaged the delicate tissues in his flight membranes and breathing system. Can we help him? Marcus asked. Maybe. The bleeding isn't immediately life-threatening, but it needs to stop soon. The inflammation is the bigger problem. If his breathing passages swell shut, we'll lose him. Marcus thought back to his combat medical training, remembering treating soldiers with similar injuries from explosive decompression. What about pressure therapy? If the original injury was caused by a sudden pressure differential, maybe we can use controlled pressure changes to help the healing process. Dr. Kim looked skeptical. That's incredibly risky. If we get the pressure wrong, we could make his injuries worse. But if we do nothing, he dies anyway, Marcus pointed out. He looked at Zephyr Thal. It's your choice. We can try something that might help, or we can keep you comfortable while hoping your body heals on its own. The dragon was quiet for several minutes, his great eyes studying both humans. Finally, he spoke. In my culture, we have a saying, the storm that grounds the dragon reveals the character of those below. You have shown me your character, Marcus Chen. I will trust your judgment. The next several hours were the most intense of Marcus's post-military life. Working with Dr. Kim and her team, they converted Hangar 7 into an improvised hyperbaric chamber, using the facility's industrial equipment to create carefully controlled pressure changes. Marcus monitored Zephyr Thal's responses, while Dr. Kim tracked his vital signs on equipment, jury-rigged to work with alien physiology. It was delicate, dangerous work. Too much pressure too fast, and they could rupture the dragon's already damaged tissues. Too little, and the treatment would be ineffective. Marcus found himself drawing on every piece of knowledge he'd gained in 2 decades of military service. Field medicine, engineering, even his experience with aircraft and pressure systems. His breathing is getting easier, Dr. Kim reported after the 3rd pressure cycle. The inflammation in his airways is starting to reduce. Zephyr Thal's voice, when he spoke, was stronger than it had been in hours. The pain lessens. How did you know this would work? I didn't, Marcus admitted. But I've seen what pressure waves can do to living tissue. And I've seen how pressure therapy can help reverse the damage. The principle should work regardless of species. You risked much on an untested theory, Zephyr Thal observed. Why? Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about all the friends he'd lost in the expansion wars, all the times he'd wished someone would take a chance to save a life. Because everyone deserves someone willing to take that risk for them, he said finally. Human, Drakmari, or anyone else. As Zephyr Thal's condition stabilized, word of the rescue spread throughout New Geneva. The successful treatment of the first Drakmari envoy to reach Earth became a symbol of human ingenuity and compassion. But for Marcus, the most important moment came when Zephyr Thal was finally able to raise his great head without pain. I owe you a debt I can never repay, the dragon said solemnly. No debt, Marcus replied. Just remember that humans help those who need it. Maybe that's worth something when your people are deciding what they think of us. Zephyr Thal's eyes gleamed with something that might have been approval. Indeed it is, warrior. Indeed it is. The medical crisis was over, but Marcus sensed that their story was just beginning. As he watched Zephyr Thal slowly test his wings for the first time since the crash, the veteran couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. Not just for him and the dragon, but for the future relationship between their species. Outside the hangar, the stars waited with possibilities neither human nor Drakmari had yet imagined. 3 days after the emergency treatment, Marcus found Zephyr Thal perched on a specially constructed platform overlooking New Geneva's skyline. The dragon's wounds had healed remarkably well, but Marcus could see the tension in his posture. Something was troubling the alien diplomat. The sunrise is different here than on Drakmar Prime, Zephyr Thal said without turning around. Your star burns cooler, casts longer shadows. It makes me homesick. Marcus climbed the platform stairs, his old injury making each step deliberate. Homesick is something I understand. Spent enough years on foreign worlds to know that feeling. He settled into a reinforced chair the engineering team had built. But you're not just missing home. What's really bothering you? Zephyr Thal's great head turned toward him, those ancient eyes reflecting worry. I received a communication from my government this morning. The attack on my ship was not random piracy as we first believed. It was a targeted assassination attempt by the Hegemony Coalition. Marcus felt his combat instincts sharpen. The Hegemony was bad news, a collection of aggressive alien species that had been expanding aggressively through the Outer Rim. Humanity had tangled with them before, usually ending in bloody conflicts. They wanted you dead specifically? Not just me. They wanted to prevent these negotiations entirely. You see, Marcus Chen, I did not come to Earth merely for diplomatic pleasantries. I came to propose an alliance between our peoples against the hegemony. My survival means those talks can proceed, but it also means the hegemony will try again. Marcus leaned back in his chair, processing this information. How long before they come looking for you here? According to our intelligence networks, a hegemony strike force is already en route. They have been tracking my ship's ion signature since the attack. They will arrive within 48 of your hours. The old soldier in Marcus was already calculating defensive positions, escape routes, available resources. What kind of force are we talking about? 3 heavy cruisers, each carrying approximately 200 hegemony shock troops. The ships themselves are heavily armored and equipped with plasma bombardment cannons capable of reducing this entire city to slag. Marcus whistled softly. That's enough firepower to level half the continent. What's Earth's defensive capability? Zephyrthal's expression grew grim. Your orbital defense network consists of 12 automated platforms and a handful of patrol corvettes. Against hegemony heavy cruisers, they would last perhaps minutes. And your people? Any Drakmari ships in the area? The nearest Confederacy fleet is 6 days away, even at maximum jump speed. We are, as you humans say, on our own. Marcus stood and walked to the platform's edge, looking out over the bustling city below. Millions of innocent people going about their daily lives, unaware that an alien war fleet was bearing down on them. The familiar weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, the same feeling he'd carried through countless battles. There might be another way, he said slowly. But it's dangerous, probably insane, and definitely not going to be approved by anyone in authority. Zephyrthal moved closer, his massive form surprisingly graceful. I am listening. Your ship still has its jump drive intact, right? That's how you made it here. Yes, but the navigation system was damaged in the attack. Without proper coordinates, a jump could send us anywhere in the galaxy if it doesn't tear the ship apart entirely. Marcus smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Who said anything about leaving? I'm thinking we bring the fight to them instead. Over the next hour, Marcus outlined a plan that was equal parts brilliant and suicidal. Instead of waiting for the hegemony fleet to arrive at Earth, they would take Zephyrthal's damaged ship and intercept them in deep space. Using the ship's stealth capabilities and Marcus's knowledge of human military tactics, they could potentially disable or destroy the strike force before it reached the planet. This plan has almost no chance of success, Zephyrthal pointed out when Marcus finished explaining. Almost no chance is better than no chance at all, Marcus replied, and it's the kind of desperate gambit that works because nobody expects it. You would risk your life for a world that is not even your birth planet? For people you do not know? Marcus looked out over New Geneva again, watching children play in the parks below. This is home now. These are my people. And you're my friend. That's enough. Zephyrthal was quiet for a long time before speaking. In Drakmari culture, there is a concept called Thalmor. It translates roughly to honor through shared sacrifice. It is the highest bond between warriors. I would be honored to attempt this impossible task with you. Preparing for their mission required all of Marcus's military connections and creative problem-solving. He couldn't request official support without triggering bureaucratic delays they didn't have time for, so he called in favors from old military contacts. Within 12 hours, he had assembled a small team of volunteers, former Marines who trusted Marcus enough to follow him into what looked like certain death. Chief Petty Officer Elena Rodriguez arrived first, her cybernetic arm gleaming in the hangar lights. She'd lost the original in the same battle where Marcus got his leg wound, and they'd saved each other's lives more times than either could count. "So we're stealing an alien ship to fight impossible odds against unknown enemies," she said cheerfully. "Sounds like a typical Tuesday with you, Marcus." Sergeant Tommy Walsh came next, dragging a duffel bag full of improvised weapons and explosives. The young demolitions expert had served under Marcus on 3 different campaigns and had never met a problem he couldn't solve with the right application of high explosives. "I brought party favors," he announced, grinning. The last volunteer surprised everyone. Dr. Sarah Kim arrived carrying a medical kit and wearing combat armor she'd somehow acquired. "Don't look at me like that," she said to Marcus's questioning stare. "You think I'm letting you idiots go off and get yourselves killed without medical support? Besides, someone needs to monitor our dragon friend's condition." Zephyr Thal watched the humans prepare with growing amazement. "Your people follow you into battle based only on personal loyalty? No official orders, no promise of reward?" "That's how we work," Marcus explained, checking his rifle's ammunition. "When it matters, humans look out for each other. Chain of command is for peacetime. When the shooting starts, we follow the people we trust." The modified diplomatic shuttle they planned to use was barely space-worthy, its hull patched with whatever materials the port's engineers could find. But Marcus had fought in worse ships, and he knew that sometimes the most important factor in battle wasn't superior equipment. It was superior determination. "The plan is simple," Marcus briefed his team as they prepared for launch. "We use the ship's remaining stealth capability to get close to the hegemony fleet. Tommy, you'll plant charges on their ship's weapon systems while they're still in formation. Elena, you'll handle ship-to-ship communications and electronic warfare. Doc, you keep everyone breathing. Zephyr Thal will pilot us in and provide tactical information about hegemony capabilities." "And what will you be doing?" Rodriguez asked. Marcus's smile was cold and professional. "I'll be doing what I do best, improvising solutions to impossible problems and making sure everyone comes home alive." The launch itself was surprisingly smooth. Zephyr Thal proved to be an exceptional pilot, despite his species' obvious preference for personal flight over mechanical vessels. The ship slipped away from Earth orbit without triggering any automated alarms, heading toward the calculated intercept point, where the hegemony fleet would drop out of hyperspace. "I must admit," Zephyr Thal said as they settled into their flight pattern, "I am curious about human military doctrine. Your species seems to favor small, flexible units over large formations. Humans learned early that sometimes the best way to win a war is to make the other side think they're fighting ghosts," Marcus replied. "We hit hard, we hit fast, and we disappear before they can respond effectively. It's worked against every species we've faced so far." "Even against superior numbers and technology?" Rodriguez laughed from her position at the communications console. "Especially against superior numbers and technology. Marcus once held off an entire Calarian battle group with nothing but a handful of Marines and a cargo hauler full of mining explosives. The Calarians made the mistake of underestimating human creativity," Marcus said modestly. "They expected us to fight by their rules. We didn't." As they approached the intercept coordinates, the ship's long-range sensors detected the distinctive energy signatures of ships dropping out of hyperspace. The hegemony fleet had arrived exactly where Marcus had predicted, their 3 massive cruisers forming a standard attack formation. "There they are," Zephyr Thal reported, his voice tight with concentration. "Scanning now. Marcus, these ships are larger than our intelligence suggested. Each one is nearly 2 kilometers long, and they're carrying more firepower than a typical hegemony battle group." Marcus studied the sensor readings, his experienced eye picking out tactical details. "They're not just here to kill you," he realized. This is an invasion fleet. They're planning to establish a foothold on Earth. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. If the hegemony conquered Earth, they would have a staging ground for attacks throughout human space. Millions of lives hung in the balance, not just on Earth, but across the entire colonial federation. "No pressure," Walsh muttered, checking his explosives one final time. "Actually, plenty of pressure," Marcus corrected with grim humor. "That's exactly what we're going to use against them." As their ship ghosted toward the enemy fleet, hidden by Drakmari stealth technology and human electronic countermeasures, Marcus felt the familiar calm that came before battle. He'd been in impossible situations before, faced enemies that seemed unbeatable, watched friends die for causes that seemed hopeless. But he'd also learned that sometimes the most important victories came from refusing to accept defeat. The hegemony fleet hung in space before them, powerful and confident, unaware that a small group of humans and one injured dragon were about to attempt something that would be remembered in the history books of both species, assuming anyone survived to write those books. "All right, people," Marcus said quietly into his comm. "Let's show these invaders what humans do when someone threatens our home." The hegemony cruisers hung in space like sleeping giants, their dark hulls bristling with weapon emplacements and defensive systems. Marcus studied them through the ship's enhanced optics, his military mind automatically cataloging weaknesses and opportunities. "Zephyrthal, can you get us within 500 meters of their lead ship without triggering their proximity sensors?" The dragon's clawed hands moved across the alien controls with practiced precision. "The stealth field will hold at that range, but only for a few minutes. Drakmari technology is advanced, but these ships have multi-spectrum detection arrays." "A few minutes is all we need," Marcus replied. He activated his comm unit. "Tommy, you ready to go, EVA?" Walsh's voice crackled back, excitement barely contained. "Born ready, boss. I've rigged the charges with remote detonators and magnetic clamps. Just get me close enough to their weapon hardpoints and I'll turn those ships into expensive scrap metal." Rodriguez monitored the enemy communications from her station. "They're maintaining radio silence, but their active scanning is off the charts. They know something's not right. They just can't figure out what." Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest that came before action. 20 years of combat had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now they were screaming that this was their only chance. The hegemony fleet wouldn't stay stationary much longer. "Doc, how's our dragon friend holding up?" Dr. Kim looked up from her medical scanner trained on Zephyrthal. "His stress levels are elevated, but that's to be expected. The injuries are healed enough that he shouldn't have any problems with high-G maneuvering." "Good. Because things are about to get rough." Marcus moved to the pilot station. "Zephyrthal, I need you to listen carefully. Human combat doctrine relies heavily on speed and unpredictability. When we start this attack, everything will happen very fast. I understand, but I must warn you, hegemony commanders are not fools. They will adapt quickly to whatever tactics you employ." Marcus smiled grimly. "That's what I'm counting on. Elena, patch me into their communications array. I want to talk to their commander." Rodriguez looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "You want to what?" "Trust me on this. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to start it on your own terms." The communication link established with surprising ease. The hegemony commander appeared on their screen, a tall, insectoid creature with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked when it spoke. Marcus had fought their species before and knew they valued directness and strength above all else. "This is Marcus Chen of the Terran Colonial Marines," he announced calmly. "I'm calling to offer you a chance to surrender." The hegemony commander's mandibles clattered in what Marcus recognized as laughter. "You dare to threaten us with a single damaged vessel? Human arrogance knows no bounds." "Not threatening," Marcus replied pleasantly. "Just being polite. We're going to destroy your fleet either way, but I thought you deserved fair warning first. The effect was immediate and exactly what Marcus had hoped for. The commander's posture shifted to aggressive, and through the link they could hear orders being shouted in the background. The hegemony ships began changing formation, moving from their relaxed patrol pattern into a combat spread. You have made a fatal error, human. We will reduce your pathetic ship to atoms. Marcus cut the communication link and turned to his team. And that, people, is how you get an enemy to do exactly what you want them to do. Tommy, they're spreading out to get better firing angles. That gives you clear approach vectors to all three ships. Walsh was already sealing his helmet. Brilliant! While they're focused on us, I can hit all their primary weapon systems before they realize what's happening. Elena, start jamming their communications the moment Tommy leaves the ship. I want them blind and confused. Doc, monitor everyone's vitals and be ready for emergency medical procedures. Rodriguez's fingers flew over her console. Electronic warfare package is ready to deploy. Their communications will go dark the second you give the word. The next few minutes required flying that would have impressed even the most skilled combat pilots. Zephyrthal guided their ship through a complex approach pattern, using the hegemony fleet's own formations to mask their movement. His understanding of three-dimensional combat space was intuitive in a way that only a natural flyer could achieve. Approaching first target, he reported, his voice steady despite the stress. Walsh, the airlock is positioned for optimal deployment. Tommy Walsh launched from the ship like a bullet, his magnetic boots and propulsion pack carrying him toward the massive hegemony cruiser. Marcus watched through the external cameras as the demolitions expert moved with practiced efficiency, placing charges on critical weapon mounts and power conduits. First ship rigged, Walsh's voice came through the comm. Moving to target 2. That's when everything went wrong. Contact! Rodriguez shouted. They've spotted Walsh. All 3 ships are powering weapons. Marcus saw the plasma cannons tracking toward their position and made a split-second decision. Elena, jam them now. Zephyrthal, evasive maneuvers. Tommy, finish the job. The ship lurched as Zephyrthal threw it into a spiraling dive between the enemy vessels. G-forces pressed Marcus into his seat, but he kept his eyes on the tactical display. The hegemony ships were firing now, their plasma beams cutting through space where they had been moments before. Their communications are down, Rodriguez reported, but they're coordinating through light signals. These guys are professionals. Walsh's voice came through intermittently as he fought to complete his mission while dodging enemy fire. Second, ship. Done. Moving to third. A plasma beam clipped their port wing, and the ship shuddered under the impact. Warning lights flashed across the control panels, and Marcus smelled the acrid scent of burning circuits. Hull breach on deck 3, Dr. Kim reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. Emergency bulkheads are holding. Marcus watched the tactical display and realized they were running out of time. The hegemony ships were closing in, their formation tightening to prevent further infiltration. Walsh was still working on the 3rd cruiser, but enemy security forces had spotted him. Tommy, you've got company incoming. I see them. Just need 30 more seconds. 30 seconds they didn't have. Marcus could see hegemony shock troops in powered armor moving to intercept Walsh. The demolitions expert was fast, but not fast enough to outrun military-grade pursuit units. Zephyrthal, can you get us close enough for covering fire? The Dragon pilot was already adjusting course, bringing them within weapons range of the 3rd cruiser. It will expose us to their main batteries, but yes. Do it! What followed was the kind of desperate firefight that Marcus remembered from his worst combat experiences. Their ship, never designed for battle, traded shots with a cruiser 100 times its size. Zephyrthal flew with inspired skill, using his natural understanding of 3-dimensional movement to stay ahead of the enemy targeting systems. Rodriguez worked her electronic warfare magic, spoofing sensors and creating false targets to confuse the enemy gunners. Dr. Kim kept everyone patched up while monitoring ship systems, somehow managing to be both medic and engineer simultaneously. And through it all, Walsh continued his work with professional calm, placing the final charges even as hegemony soldiers closed in around him. "Charges placed," he announced. "Getting clear now." "Negative," Marcus replied, seeing the enemy pursuit closing in. "You'll never make it to the pickup point. Find hard cover and wait for the fireworks." Marcus activated the detonation sequence without hesitation. The explosions that followed were spectacular. Shaped charges detonated simultaneously across all three enemy ships, targeting their primary weapon systems and power distribution networks. The massive cruisers, suddenly crippled and unable to coordinate their attacks, began to drift helplessly. "Walsh, report!" Static filled the comm channel for long moments before the demolitions expert's voice came through, weak but alive. "Still breathing, boss. Took some shrapnel, but I'm mobile. These hegemony guys don't know what to make of human explosives." With the enemy fleet disabled, Marcus ordered Zephyrthal to retrieve Walsh, while they still had the element of surprise. The extraction was harrowing, flying into the middle of a damaged enemy ship while avoiding secondary explosions and hostile fire from infantry weapons. But they managed it, pulling Walsh aboard just as the first hegemony cruiser's power core began to fail catastrophically. "Time to go," Marcus announced unnecessarily. The retreat was almost as dangerous as the attack had been. The damaged hegemony ships were still dangerous, their secondary weapons tracking the fleeing shuttle. But Zephyrthal's piloting and Rodriguez's electronic countermeasures kept them ahead of the worst threats. As they cleared the immediate combat zone, Marcus allowed himself a moment to process what they had accomplished. 3 enemy cruisers disabled or destroyed, an invasion fleet turned into floating debris, and Earth saved from conquest, all by a small team of humans and 1 brave dragon. "Incoming transmission," Rodriguez reported. "It's from Earth Defense Command." Admiral Harrison's face appeared on screen, his expression mixing relief with disbelief. "Marcus, what the hell did you just do out there?" "Our job, sir," Marcus replied simply. "The hegemony threat has been neutralized. With a stolen diplomatic shuttle and a handful of volunteers, the sensor readings we're getting don't make sense. How did you disable 3 heavy cruisers?" Marcus looked at his team, Rodriguez nursing a dislocated shoulder, Walsh bandaged but grinning, Dr. Kim checking everyone's condition, and Zephyrthal carefully monitoring their flight path home. "Teamwork, sir, and the fact that humans don't know when to quit." The aftermath of what became known as the Geneva Incident changed everything between humans and the Drakmari Confederacy. Zephyrthal's report to his government described not just human military capability, but human character, the willingness to risk everything for those under their protection, the bonds of loyalty that held small units together under impossible odds, and the innovative thinking that turned desperate situations into victories. 6 months later, Marcus stood once again on the observation platform overlooking New Geneva, watching the construction of the new human Drakmari Joint Military Academy. Zephyrthal perched beside him, fully healed and wearing the insignia of a Confederacy military attaché. "Your species continues to surprise us," the dragon said, watching human and Drakmari cadets training together. "The alliance between our peoples grows stronger each day." "Good," Marcus replied. "Because if the hegemony taught us anything, it's that the galaxy is a dangerous place. We're better off facing those dangers together." "Indeed. Though I suspect the next threat we face will be equally surprised by what humans can accomplish when they set their minds to it." Marcus smiled, thinking about his team and all the other humans throughout the galaxy who faced impossible odds with nothing but determination and creative thinking. "Let them come. We'll be ready." Zephyrthal's rumbling laugh carried across the platform. Yes, my friend, I believe you will be. As the sun set over New Geneva, casting long shadows across the Joint Academy, where two species learned to fight side by side, Marcus reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. He'd started as a soldier fighting alien threats and ended up as a bridge between species, proving that sometimes the greatest victories came not from superior firepower, but from the simple human refusal to abandon those who needed help. The stars above held countless challenges yet to come, but Marcus was confident that humanity would meet them the same way they always had, with courage, creativity, and an absolute unwillingness to accept defeat. After all, that was simply what humans did. In the distance, the first joint human Drakmari patrol ships lifted off from the spaceport, their crews trained in the kind of cooperative tactics that had won the day against the hegemony. The alliance forged in crisis was becoming something stronger, a partnership that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Marcus watched them go and smiled. The future looked bright indeed.